How's it going? Welcome back, my wonderful wise ones. Today, I want to discuss recently what has happened to Bethesda, how Bethesda is over, why so many people across the goddamn interwebs are now saying Bethesda is finished.
You're goddamn right.
This is a perfect time to have this conversation as Season 2 of the new Fallout TV show is right around the corner. And the reason I didn't want to make this video is because I've seen so much hate, videos on Bethesda that I feel like it's almost become a redundant point. Clearly, what Bethesda did with the anniversary edition of Fallout 4 was absolutely abhorrent, disgusting, and I'm so glad that they're getting the absolute backlash that they deserve. And honestly, it seems that this is the final thing that has pushed people over the edge. Finally, they have realized and woken up to the fact that Bethesda just won't be the same again.
What the fuck is going on here?
I think this is a very important wake-up call to have, and I feel like I need to discuss what's happening with Fallout, because in my opinion, Bethesda doesn't understand Fallout. At one point, Bethesda maybe did understand the IP of Fallout, but over the years and all of it kind of coming to a head right now with Season 2, with what they've done with Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition, how they've responded to it, and just looking at what's happening with Fallout, as big as this IP is now, as a franchise, it's bigger than ever, and what we're actually getting apart from the TV show, I think it's the perfect time to break down how Bethesda doesn't understand Fallout, and perhaps Bethesda never truly did understand Fallout.
We always start with the world, and this time it features all new rendering, lighting, and landscape technology. It allows us to have 16 times the detail.
Now, I've been thinking about this video for a long time. I've put it on the back burner because I just wasn't sure how many people would be interested in this conversation, honestly. But with the recent discourse around Bethesda, I just feel like I have to say something. This has been on my mind for so long, and that is Bethesda's Fallout was never exactly what Fallout should have become. And I just want to go through some of the games from, since Fallout 3 to New Vegas, to what it is now with Fallout 76, Fallout 4, and the mobile games, and just look at Bethesda's attitude over the years to this franchise and to the universe of Fallout, because from its art style, from its icons and gameplay and RPG systems, so much has changed throughout the years, and I think so many people have finally woken up to the fact that Bethesda doesn't truly care about Fallout. So much has changed with Fallout over the years. We've had so many different spin-offs, so many different takes on the Fallout franchise at this point, and finally it's being recognized as one of the biggest franchises and universes in gaming, simply because of its fantastic lore, world building, and uniqueness. Okay, there's a reason why channels like Oxhorn are so popular, and people like Mr. Matty Plays, who just bait the same video title over and over again. Could this be Fallout New Vegas 2 or Fallout New Vegas Remaster? There's a reason why so many people are desperate for anything new coming out of this franchise, and they want to understand the lore because it is so interesting. I myself have done a full philosophical breakdown of each of the ideologies and factions in the game, because to me that's why I love Fallout. It's because it's a game with actual good writing and deep moral consequences and questions that you have to answer yourself. In many ways, it feels like Todd Howard and Bethesda didn't understand Fallout ever. They kind of looked at it on a surface level with the crazy creatures like the Death Claws, the ghouls, the retro-futuristic genre that Fallout inhabits. They think that's the reason why Fallout is popular, and they couldn't be more wrong. So I finally decided that since there's no games really interesting me this month, December is going to be my experimental month, and I'm just going to make the videos that I truly care about, the ones I'm passionate about. Of course, I'm happy talking about new games and stuff that interests me, but there are particular things that interest me the most, like the beloved Fallout franchise, which is my #1 favorite game franchise of all time, and also just philosophical videos I want to make. So stay tuned if you are into Fallout content, as I am going to be releasing a lot of Fallout content. I'm working on a big Fallout 4 video that transforms the whole game better than Bethesda ever could thanks to mods, so look forward to that. And to any newcomers of the channel, please do consider subscribing, like I said, as I am a massive die-hard fan of the Fallout franchise. If you love game reviews, deep analysis on video games, and philosophical videos, you will find them all here on this channel.
You're in the chess club.
So before we find out exactly the cause as to why Bethesda doesn't truly understand Fallout, we have to go back and look at the original games, okay? Now, these games were known for their deep role-playing and a very dark, gritty world. The idea of civilization being completely wiped out and it being a completely derelict wasteland wasn't actually the core idea of what the original Fallout games were going for. Factions were much further along, civilization was already being established again, governments like the NCR were on the rise, but Bethesda didn't really like that. They wanted the world and the gameplay just to simply focus on the pure survival aspects of the post-apocalyptic era that they were in.
Megaton destroyed? You didn't have anything to do with that, did you?
I don't want peace. I want problems, always!
But Bethesda wanted the Fallout games to be just purely a post-apocalyptic survival game, where everything is still in its infancy. That's the major difference between the OG Fallout games and the Bethesda Fallout games. Also, it's the art style. I have seen some other videos touch upon this, but not many to be honest, and it is very, very important. Fallout 4 is the polar opposite of the original Fallout art style and the original Fallout aesthetic, where it's much more colorful, it's very saturated, and everything has a lot more hope and light to it. Also, not just in the, visual design when it comes to lighting and the weather and all this kind of stuff, but the aesthetics themselves have changed over time with redesigns of certain creatures and just having this more sci-fi look to it. Instead of this mutated, darker aesthetic that the original Fallout games had, Bethesda seemed to opt for a much more grandiose futurism aesthetic, which was kind of the whole joke of the original Fallout games. Instead of the buildings actually looking like they belonged in Futurama, that was more the envisioned state that this culture was heading towards, but they never actually reached. And Bethesda kind of missed that point, and they made a lot of the designs later on reflect this kind of sci-fi aesthetic that never really belonged to the original Fallout games. Now, you can clearly see this in the new Fallout TV show, especially with the second season coming around. They honestly get the aesthetic of New Vegas, and I love the aesthetic of New Vegas, and Fallout 3 as well. I think both of these games did a very good job of blending most of the ideas of the original Fallout games into a 3D setting. And honestly, I commend them. I love most of the designs from those games. And honestly, that's where I really tapped into the Fallout franchise. I went back and played the older games, but that's what I love to see. And those aesthetic choices were amazing. But everything changed when it came to Fallout 4 and 76.
My disappointment is immeasurable. And my day is ruined.
You know how much I sacrificed?
Now, when you look at the creatures across the Fallout games from Bethesda, compared to the original Fallout games, you see that the creatures themselves are just much more streamlined and simplified. Instead of being this interesting, twisted take on that unique creature or enemy, they became a lot more just boring to look at. I think the ghouls are my favorite and perfect example of this, whereas before they almost looked like derelict, rotting trees and just decaying corpses. In the later Fallout games, they became much more friendly to look at. They became much more like just people with, a few features missing. Everything kind of became waxy and smoothed over. The super mutants as well had a massive redesign, which I'm personally not a big fan of, where they became a lot less threatening with their muscles being toned down, less big shoulders, and their mouths being strapped open, which actually had lore implications, but obviously it changes, you know, depending on the region. It was the Commonwealth compared to DC, but overall I just feel like the creatures themselves became more and more toned down. It lacked that very dark aesthetic of the older Fallout games, where it was about, you know, a very, very bleak topic, the annihilation, you know, of the old world and the hubris of mankind and the mutations that came from mankind's, you know, destruction with nuclear fallout and all of these different corporations pulling the strings, like Robco. And some of it might be nostalgia, but look at the Yagwai compared to just basically a boring bear. There's so many things that Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 changed for the worse, and it's essential to have that dark undertone in the Fallout games because it needs to be scary. Fallout 3 and New Vegas, you can say what you want about these games compared to the OG Fallout, but they were scary. Going into the metro systems were intense, and there were some horrific moments in these games, especially with New Vegas as well as Fallout 3. But Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, it feels like a theme park ride, and that's what I want to get onto next.
That I was a professional goof-off.
You are pissing me off.
So many things changed when it came to Fallout 4 and especially Fallout 76. The games became much more action-focused. I don't need to regurgitate the old story that we all know. It became much more about a looter-shooter type game instead of deep moral choices, RPG, choice and consequences, building out your character through different traits and perks and all this kind of stuff. Everything became a little bit more simplified. The dialogue system especially was absolutely the worst thing to ever happen to the new Fallout games, where it became so much less about depth and deep role-playing and skill checks and all this kind of stuff, and it just became about quippy one-liners and trying to get to, you know, the shooting as quick as possible. Most of the dialogue was just pretty terrible in Fallout 4, but you could fix it with some mods which made it a little bit better, but having a voice protagonist just did not work. Now, people have done this for years at this point, comparing Fallout 4 to Fallout New Vegas. Obviously, gameplay-wise, you can argue that Fallout 4 is a better game, a superior game, because it doesn't break, and you can actually, you know, play it without looking up tons of guides on how to fix it and actually play this game, which I'm sure a lot of people want to do now, but sadly, it's not that easy anymore to play New Vegas. But simply comparing the gameplay is not a fair comparison, because what Fallout New Vegas has that Fallout 4 doesn't is deep writing, deep role-playing, actual factions and ideologies that actually represent real-world ideas that make you question your own morality, your own philosophy, disguise systems that work within the faction, reputation, karma, so much that was missing from Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. In comparison, Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 had very weak factions. In fact, Fallout 76 didn't even have any NPCs to begin with. It was all mostly, you know, listening to audio logs or reading, you know, notes that aren't usually the best written. Now, I will say that Bethesda was very good at environmental story design and, you know, laying out an emotional story that you could just see without actually picking up an audio log or reading anything, just by visual design alone. They peaked, sadly, with Fallout 3. Fallout 4 had these moments, but because the art style and the aesthetics changed so radically, it didn't feel threatening anymore. I can't play Fallout 4 vanilla, I just simply can't. I just don't feel like I'm in the Fallout universe. I have to mod it a lot. So it's clear to see that so much has changed from the original Fallout games to where we are now, where Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 became more about, like I said, a theme park ride. That's the best way I can describe it. It's more about pulling the player into recognizable, unique aspects of the Fallout franchise and universe, like these unique creatures, Deathclaws, and, you know, super mutants, making them recognizable simply so you can go and shoot them at the end, with most quests leading to violence, instead of having dialogue choices that could impact, form factions, form different relationships, and shape the world around you like the original Fallout games. And that's what Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 has become. Now, I would say Fallout 76 has done a better job in some aspects than Fallout 4, and Fallout 4 can be a fun Fallout game if you mod it, but you can see just how many design choices were different compared to the original Fallout games, and even the nice middle ground of Fallout 3. Of course, Fallout New Vegas stands in its own sector.
You know how much I sacrificed?
So I give you all of these different points and, this context to get to the question, did Bethesda ever understand the Fallout franchise? Did Bethesda ever understand what Fallout truly was, what made it good to begin with? I would say in some ways they did, because Fallout 3 is a prime example of bringing some of the greater aspects of the original Fallout games, the atmosphere, the ambience, the world design, the creature designs, the art style, the tense, moody, dark tone of the older games. Perhaps not as much, but it was still very much in play in Fallout 3. Good storytelling for the most part. I will still stand on that hill. I do think Fallout 3 does have a pretty good storyline, good writing, pretty interesting characters. Of course, a lot of it falls flat by the end, and some of the stuff doesn't make any sense, but for what it was good, and there was many quests in this game that were just unique. I made a whole video just gushing about Fallout 3 recently. It's more of an introspective look at the game and myself at the time, but check it out if you're interested. There's so many cool, unique quests in this game that are just, when Bethesda were great, when they came up with original ideas, each storyline was kind of self-contained, but so fascinating that it didn't matter if it didn't impact the greater world like New Vegas did. It was still a fun time. But Fallout 4 and 76 just simply became about the recognizable aspects of Fallout, making it accessible, consumable, and simply mostly about action and gunplay, less about role-playing, and less about creating a believable world where your actions had consequences.
Who's laughing now?
Now, I think all of the reasons I said are fair. Some of them are subjective, but I think most of them are objective, in my humble opinion. But I am a massive Fallout nerd, so, take some of my takes with a grain of salt. If you do love Fallout 76 and Fallout 4, that's fine. I still get a lot of enjoyment from these games when I play them in my own way, and I actually add RPG systems back into these games that they should have been there to begin with, and I actually have to fix the dialogue system, and I have to basically change the whole aesthetic and redesign the whole game to make it actually look like an actual Fallout game, but otherwise, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But this all comes down to one simple design choice that Bethesda were focusing on that just broke modern Fallout games, in my opinion, and that is settlement building. They did the same thing with Starfield. It did not work there. It didn't exactly work in the Fallout games either. I understand the idea of creating, rebuilding this world. That sounds very, very interesting in a post-apocalyptic world, but when none of the settlement systems functioned correctly, it was a nightmare to put together without mods, and it didn't have actual good impact on the actual gameplay and the world around you, and it didn't feel like any of it felt real. It felt very artificial instead of impacting the world like it did later with Nuka World and stuff like that, some DLCs that they added later. It just was all kind of stitched together, and that's the best way to describe the settlement system. It was stitched together and forced into a game that didn't exactly feel like it fitted whatsoever. So much of their time and resources went into the settlement system, and that really broke the game, and it took away a lot of the interesting, and it took away development time from some of the more interesting aspects that could have been in Fallout 4. Fallout 76 doubled down on this, and like I said, it doubled down on that dungeon raiding looter shooter gameplay of collecting legendary weapons and all of this kind of stuff, instead of about meaningful quests and instead of about meaningful stories and quest lines. That's what Bethesda chose to focus on. That was the direction they were going on. Recognizable elements of the Fallout franchise, because it is iconic, and they use the iconic, enemies, weapons, world design, lore to pull in more casual players, to make it bigger, more accessible, but in the end more diluted. That is what has happened with the Fallout franchise. That is why Bethesda never understood Fallout to begin with exactly. They understood some of its original concepts and they adapted them very well to begin with, but this is what happened. Greed, money, and the downfall of Bethesda. So this is the final chapter.
You know how much I sacrificed?
It makes me honestly sad to go back and watch some of this footage from Todd Howard presenting himself back when he was a young man, crisp and stylish in his little leather jacket, looking very, very tasty. I probably shouldn't say that. He looks pretty good, okay, is what I'm trying to say. And everyone was just excited back when we didn't have to wait years and years and, you know, decades at this point for a new Fallout game. I was so upset when Fallout New Vegas was revealed, just simply because I was so enraptured by Fallout 3 when it came out, and like I was shocked that already we're getting a new Fallout game. But I would kill for that now. And the same thing with Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, you know, it wasn't that long in between these games, but it's been so long now for a Fallout game. In many ways, I would say Bethesda has lost some of their confidence, especially after Starfield. They saw that players did not resonate with that game. Their writing has just got worse and worse over the years as people have come and left and, you know, things have changed around. Like I said, overall, their quest design has just become more and more streamlined and basic. So there are many reasons as to why Starfield didn't stick, and that's a video for another time. But a lot of that impacted future Fallout games, I think, and a focus on the Fallout IP. Bethesda just didn't want to take another creative risk like Starfield, where they put so much money into it. Obviously, they're secured because of Microsoft, but they don't want to do that anymore. So instead, Bethesda doubled down on what was working. The cash cow that was 76, now that they've updated it and fixed it, and they have made it a good game. Not necessarily a great Fallout game, but a good game, that's for sure. But they doubled down on what was working, what was producing money, what was producing the best outcomes, and live service gaming was the go-to. So this is why Fallout 76 has been pushed down our throats for so many years at this point, and that's fine. I know many people enjoy this game, but for me, I want a single-player Fallout experience. I don't want a game set in a universe that I love without the beloved aspects that made me love this franchise to begin with. Like I said, the RPG mechanics, the deep stories, the writing, the role-playing, all of this kind of stuff. So Bethesda, instead of becoming a game company, they became a merchandise company. They are selling you now on the idea of Fallout. That is why the Fallout TV show is the best thing that we've had in so long. That is why so many people love this show, because it respects what Fallout was, and it's got nothing to do with Bethesda. And so much of what keeps Fallout alive today are the mods, are the community. Fallout has become a thing. Fallout has become an IP that only lives because of its community. And instead of Bethesda respecting that and, you know, doing something to celebrate that and showing some love to the fans, perhaps, you know, putting out, you know, a quick remake of Fallout 3 that pays homage and builds on the formula, similar to what we're getting with Skyblivion instead of what we got with the Oblivion remaster. What they do instead is they try and resell you the same game over and over and over again. Not only this, but they actually break their own games where it could be easily fixed. They just leave it there to die, and then they release another edition with half-assed content. Simply that, content. It's not actual game design, good quality stuff. It's content for you to consume so they can extract more money from you because they know you're excited about the TV show. Bethesda has become this horrible company where it's just built around the idea of something instead of producing absolutely anything. It's become a goddamn shadow of what it used to be. And I just had to make this video. I had to rant about the downfall of Bethesda, why so many people are now turning against this company. I used to hold out hope, okay? And I didn't like all of these content creators constantly making Bethesda hate videos. I felt like it was overdone and sometimes not necessary. But time and time again, Bethesda has proven that they just simply don't care. They do not care about the Fallout franchise. They do not care about the players. They are simply a merchandise company now, trying to extract as much money as possible from the Fallout fans.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Having a massively successful TV show centered around New Vegas coming out, and Bethesda, the only thing that they have for this, instead of a remake, instead of a remaster, is a plastic figurine that they want to make you pay a ridiculous amount of money for, and it's just the same game. An anniversary edition of Fallout 4 that breaks the game, that breaks all of the hard work that modders put into their creations to keep the franchise alive, leaving that game to rot for a year and then just releasing more broken, fixes and content that just doesn't even fix the game, that actually breaks the functionality. Not only that, the rebalancing, the balance of the game. They don't care about that. They don't care about lore accuracy. They don't care about any of this stuff. They only care about making money. And it's just it frustrates me so much. And I understand now why so many people are fed up with Bethesda. And that's why I had to make this video. I had to focus purely on Fallout, how Bethesda doesn't understand Fallout, and perhaps Bethesda never understood Fallout to begin with. And these were the reasons why. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if it was a bit ranty. This is all just coming from my personal emotions and my feelings around these games that I love and cherish so much. They shaped my teenage years, who I've become, my interest in, analyzing things further, understanding different ideologies and morality and all this kind of stuff. These games are special when they are done right. And the universe is so interesting and it has so much compelling lore that is so different compared to most sci-fi shows or post-apocalyptic shows or anything out there. It's its own unique thing, and what we have is a great show now and a company that owns the license to this franchise, this universe, and is only extorting you, is only selling you nostalgia, the same product over and over again. And they have transformed, as I hope you can see in this video, what was once an interesting and unique franchise, universe, game, and they've now turned it into consumer looter-shooter live service slop for the most part, with tons of microtransactions, tons of paid mods, and then they just break their games over and over again and expect you to repurchase it in the hope that it might work. I mean, it's crazy to me that this is the state of modern gaming, so I just had to make this video. Thank you so much for watching, my wise ones. I know this is a bit of a long one. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Subscribe if you're new, like the video, share this video around, or drop a thanks. Anything to support the channel, it does mean a lot, as I am trying super hard to make this full time. So thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.